obviously you also have the Pearl Haven.
Yeah.
The Pearl Haven.
Safe haven.
Safe Haven.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell us a little bit more about that, because I've done a little bit of work and research around, physical abuse towards women in Ghana.
Yeah.
And I do know that. Look, I know there was the Ark,
Yes.
which is a safe house. They've struggled for many years with finances.
Yeah.
And usually the government just doesn't have the capacity, or they're just not supporting enough.
Yeah.
So to do that, just tell us how the idea was born with yourself and your partner, and what you're hoping it can be.
So the Pearl came through the discussions at the Lady. So one of the things we do at the Lady is we always end on the discussion of relationships. And I find that if your relationships are, misaligned, it's going to mess. It doesn't really matter how good you're doing at school. If you're not at peace at home, you can be an A-star student, but you're not going to go anywhere. And so we always end on relationships, and we always say, like, that's foundational. Dealing with issues. A lot of children are dealing with loss, loss of a parent, or divorce, or parents that just don't communicate with them. You can have two active parents and still be an orphan because your parents are just not interested in your life. Or things like boyfriend issues at that age, 16.
And which sometimes African parents don't even want to know their kids are dating, or a boy or a girl likes them. No.
They don't want to. They're just like,
there's a
look at your books,
That's it.
And the reality is parents were kids, and how your hormones worked as well. So it's just so wrong that we don't address those issues. And I think it's a very hard conversation, but parents have to have them. And I think we just, blanket it out. So those relationship sessions are always deep. And we had some girls starting to come out and talk about, being sexually harassed in the workplace. And, one girl was talking about dating a guy who she then found was sleeping with her friend. But it wasn't just sleeping with her friend, they were sleeping in the same dorm room.
Whoa.
And that is not just, it's just emotionally abusive. And there's so much mental sickness, mental illness in this country that we don't touch, because again, it's one of those taboo subjects, right? So it's not just the physical abuse of rape and sexual violence, it's the mental and emotional trauma that happens that many times we're just like, oh, it's okay.
And elsewhere, people go through therapy and years of therapy. I literally hear of cases where a 6 or 7, 10-year-old young girl has been defiled, raped, and once they take them to the hospital, don't talk about it again.
And they'll never we don't want to talk about it.
Which is detrimental.
We don't want to talk about it, and it's like a pressure cooker, right? You're just telling the girl to shut up, and it's going to show up at some point. There was a story that in one of the training sessions we went to, she was a young lady who was raped, and her mother said, well, keep the baby because...
Oh, she was pregnant.
She became impregnated, and it was a violent rape. And the mother said, well, keep the baby because I've always wanted to have a grandchild, totally oblivious to what the girl had gone through. And by 6-8 months, she had strangled the baby to death because you haven't dealt with the underlying issue, right? So all of these things started coming up, from things like workplace harassment, being asked to sleep with you to be promoted. And she showed up, and I raised this specific issue with, one of my mentors, and she said, no, let's help her get a leadership course and show her that taking the right decision actually pays, right? Because a lot of girls do it because if you're not getting income,
it seems like this is their only choice.
You can't judge certain people. I mean, I just think, like, if you are blessed to have to be strong-willed, or have a strong mind, or have the capacity, financially, whatever, you can't judge certain decisions that people make. So we got her that accepted, but we decided, no, there's an issue here. And so I started exploring more into the gender violence space and realized, there's no Operation Safe House at the moment. So even when you have an issue, you can't send...
There's nowhere to go.
You can't send people.
Have to end up staying in the houses or in the same places with the people inflicting the violence on them, gender-based violence. So there's some